6th of June 2023, this and that and what the fuck else, episode 160. Over the past week or so I was very busy with single topic Skidmarks and I didn't have time to do my usual news programs. But today I just decided I'm going to force myself, because there are some news snippets that we really need to take note of. And as I explained to somebody else, my main aim with these types of news programs that I do is just to give you some information of incidents and things that happens elsewhere around the world, and things that will or can or might influence our lives. So you will also see that the things that I'm using is stuff that you would rarely find on the mainstream media. And another thing that I have thought about a lot is I have a tendency to try and show these Zazi supporters the error of their ways. But I've also decided I'm going to stop that. We are more than a year into that war in the Ukraine. Every person with a decent urge to know facts and find facts knows now that Zelensky is a Zazi. His army is destroying civilian lives and civilian buildings and civilian infrastructure. They're actually terrorists. And I don't need to tell you that Putin did not invade Ukraine illegally. So I'm just going to show you the facts and you can make your own mind up. The first thing that I have, I usually start this with a slideshow and show you some stuff from Russia, just to give you an idea what the Russians are fighting for. But this slideshow in this show tonight is specifically about Bakhmut. And to give you an idea of what that Ukrainian soldiers actually do, this is a collection of photographs of the House of Culture in the center of Bakhmut. And look at the destruction. They destroyed that place before they moved out. And that is exactly the tactics that they used in Mariupol as well, where they exploded the Mariupol theater, imploded it on top of people that were still hiding in the basements of the theater, and they tried to blame the Russians. Take a look at this and see what they have destroyed. That devastation was not necessary, but that is how they work. They use civilian infrastructure for firing points, and when the Russians drive them out, they destroy it. They do it with houses, they do it with flats, they do it with office blocks, everything. And when they go out, they destroy the stuff. Now let's see, here we've got a little bit of information about Brics. There's always time for smiles and laughter before business, as Russia's delegation meets the Saudi counterparts in South Africa. The reason why I use this little clip is this was the meeting that was held here in South Africa, and the ministers of foreign affairs of the Brics countries were here. But interesting, Saudi is here. So there was quite a few other. It looks to me like all the people countries that applied to get entry into Brics, they sent their delegations as well. And another shot about the delegation, Russian Foreign Ministry, Sergei Lavrov, arrives in South Africa to attend the Brics Foreign Ministers Council meeting. This is a very important process, this Brics thing, and you must be aware the Americans is going to do whatever they can to derail this thing. And then we get to the Donbass, and I'm not going to read all the information in the slides. You can stop the video if you want to read it in detail. At night, Ukrainian formations fired at least 4 rockets from the HIMARS MLRS at the village of Karpati in the Lugansk People's Republic. Now, just remember, if you hear that HIMARS were used, the Americans, they selected targets and they programmed those machines. That Zazi Ukrainians just press the buttons. So if you see civilian buildings like this blown up with HIMARS, it is the Americans that do it. And then we've got some news from Mariupol. There's already a strategic investor for the development of the Azovstal territory in Mariupol. A modern techno park will be built there, taking into account all environmental requirements. Earlier he stated that demining of Azovstal is planned to be completed by the summer of 2024. That is a massive plant. Very few, us in South Africa, cannot even imagine the size of that thing. And that was the major polluter of Mariupol. That plant was the reason why Mariupol was known for the high levels of pollution. And there was, at a point, initially they said they're going to demolish everything, and then there was talks again, and now they're going to restart it, but with new technology and so forth. And now it seems to me that they've settled and it's going to be developed into a techno park. And then we get to this creature. He is also known as the Baghdad Bob of Kiev. Now for the older guys, we remember Baghdad Bob. That was the Hussein government spokesman that will stand in the streets and tell you everything is fine, but the tanks are driving around behind his back. Arestovich, who was declared a terrorist and extremist in Russia, came to Israel and began to explain how Ukraine, after its victory, would deal with the people of Donetsk and Crimea. Citizens would be divided into categories. The first ones are clearly collaborators with the enemy. Voluntarily, they are better off leaving, I say it once. There are people who might not cooperate, but they do. For example, the owner of a service station that repairs Russian military equipment. He is in the first category, voluntarily. And the service station director could have resigned, but he did not. We are going to smite them in their rights. 10 years without voting, something like that. There will be a special zone in Donbass, while fines, arrests, for example, all the property will be immediately seized. Does that sound like a Zazi? It does. And then we get to this. More than 1,000 residential apartments destroyed by Ukrainian artillery. Local authorities say that around 1,150 residential apartments were destroyed last week due to the continuous Ukrainian artillery barrage of the town of Shebekino, Belgorod region. Some 370 civilian houses have also been damaged. And that is what they do. They are terrorists, actually. Terrorists. And then we have this, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm just going to read you this. This is the attempts by the enemy during June 4 to break through the defense of Russian troops in the South Donetsk direction. Only the 31st Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, which attacked in the area of the settlement of Neschoknai, lost more than 250 servicemen, 16 tanks, 24 armored combat vehicles, including 3 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles. 5 Ukrainian servicemen were taken prisoner. I'm reading that for you to give you an idea. That's in one day, 250 servicemen killed. And then we get to this. Ukraine uses UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles to attack civilian homes. Footage show the aftermath of a Ukrainian Storm Shadow missile strike on the civilian infrastructure of Novolixievka village in the Kherson region. That is what they do. They shoot civilians. That is what they do. And then we have this. The hydroelectric dam in Kherson region partially destroyed. The Kakhovskaya hydroelectric dam in the Russian Kherson region, located on the Dnieper River, upstream from the city of Kherson, suffered significant damage after a terrorist attack on Tuesday. Now, the Ukrainians have been trying to blow that dam for a long time. And the first reports came out that the dam is now gone. But then later during the day, the reports that came in said it was basically a few of the sluice gates were damaged. But still, it's a lot of water that's flowing out. And then we have this interesting piece of information. If Germany doesn't change its policy, they will lose their industry. They need to stop with that because it's a nightmare for Germany now. They're losing their industry because they don't have access anymore to Russian gas, says the political analyst. Anti-Russian sanctions imposed by European countries damage their own economies. However, experts believe that such consequences are not unintended. The US has long been laying the groundwork and strategizing to weaken Europe. Some even argue that Europe has become a colony of the US. Is this really the case? Well, you can make up your own mind, but the Americans planned this thing perfectly. The European industries are done. And then we've got some comments from Scott Ritter. He just spent a month in Russia. And he says, "Hey Blinken, Biden, your plan is not working. Russia has done you. They have changed the economy so that they no longer need the West. No one here wants to deal with America or Europe now." You can read the whole thing if you want to. The West overplayed their hand. Then we get to this. EU plans 4-year Ukraine aid worth tens of billions of euros. The European Union is working on a 4-year plan for financial assistance to Ukraine worth tens of billions of euros, seeking to lay a more stable and predictable footing for such support, the Financial Times reported. Now, what I want to know from this Ursula von der Crazy, where is that money going to come from? That is all I'm asking. And then you have this piece of idiotic news from Europe. The average IQ in Haiti is 68. Minimum IQ needed to stand trial in America, 75. And then it says more than 100 Haiti migrants land in Florida. And listen to this. White girls are getting gang raped by brown migrants who will not be prosecuted for fears of racism and that they are levels of mental retardation where they can't stand trial. So, just there, these migrants has now got a free pass to rape as many white girls as they want. And then we have this. Serbia's Vučić scared to talk to Putin. And I'm not going to read it, I'm just going to tell you about it. The thing is this, he says that he cannot talk to Putin because the EU keeps on threatening him with sanctions and so forth. And then I've listened to another commentator that says in any case, Vučić is a EU, actually a NATO puppet. So, Serbia, you're on your own. And then we have this, the Uganda unmoved by anti-LGBTQ law criticism. We all know about the law that Uganda has passed, and there's also poor articles in that law that makes certain types of contraventions of that law, the guys will get the death penalty. And the one is if a minor is sexually assaulted, death penalty. The Western world is up in arms and screaming sanctions, sanctions, sanctions. But Uganda says, wait, this is our country, we will decide how to look after our people, which is good. And then we have this. The USA is going to try to derail the ANC or the SA economy. View the spat. Apparently there is a little bit of tension between Ramaphosa and Biden. But let's see where that will end. Here is interesting news, just take note of it. Taliban talks held with Qatar. The Qatar Prime Minister held secret talks with the Taliban Supreme Leader in Afghanistan this month to resolve differences with the international community. This is part and parcel of the Middle East getting their act together, and it's very close. And once they've sorted all their issues out, the Americans must be gone there, because those bases is going to be in danger. And then we have this. Iran has officially joined the club of hypersonic powers with the introduction of the advanced Fatah missile. The declared range of the product is 1,400 kilometers. Fatah has high speed, increased maneuverability, and is able to overcome resistance of the modern air defense and missile defense systems. Israel has a lot to think about, and I would agree with that. Israel better get their act together. The Arabs are uniting. Once that is done, Israel is standing on a banana peel. And then we get this oak, Secretary General Ben Wallace. That is if he gets the position at NATO, because it has now become known that he is interested in taking over from Stoltenberg. The appointment of a British protege to the post of NATO Secretary General will mean that the conflict in Ukraine will develop according to the most severe scenario, which, by the way, implies extremely negative consequences for Britain itself. The Soties are going to get themselves blown off the map. And then we have this. Cholera outbreak affects hundreds in the DRC. Over 200 cholera cases in just 1 week has been detected in the town of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, on this I'm going to say the following. There's a few countries in Africa that has told the West to take a hike. And I just find it interesting that most of those countries now all of a sudden has got a cholera problem. And then we get this from Sergei Lavrov. If the US ambassador has an impression on something, he should know his place and stay out of other people's business. Lavrov commented on the accusation made by the US ambassador to South Africa about the alleged supply of weapons to Russia by Pretoria. The Russian foreign minister also said that Moscow had never violated international law, unlike the Americans who were supplying Kiev with weapons. And there you have it. Now the following piece of information is quite interesting, and what is happening in principle here is that the Russians were developing a process of using the spent uranium rods that comes out of the power stations. They were recycling those things, and there was a few things that they did into the process, and as they say, they want to close the loop Now, what exactly that means, I don't know, but they asked the Americans to join them in the research about 8 years ago, and America told them to take a hike. So the Russians went on their own, and they have that now very, very close to perfection. They're apparently at about 90%, and they have fired up the first nuclear reactor on that technology. And here comes the kicker. With the 90% the loop condition that they have reached in the technology, it means that that reactor is loaded with the fuel rods, and it will run for 100 years. If they can get and manage to close the loop, one load will last 1,000 years. Think about that. And then we've got this, the UK to house hundreds more migrants on barges. Now, I'm not going to read the thing, I'm just going to talk about it. Can you imagine? They are now putting migrants on barges because they're running out of space in the hotels. Now, what I want to know, any responsible government will protect its country against migrants. They won't even get into the country. This fucker is jumping around to find them accommodation. But as I said in one of my other Skidmarks, Britain has got now an installed WEF governor, and Britain is a WEF colony. It's no longer a country, it's a colony. And then we have this, and this is disturbing, and this refers to that incident I spoke about earlier where that dam was blown up. Zelensky reportedly received the final approval to blow up the dam yesterday during an unannounced visit by the British Foreign Secretary Cleverly. Now, Cleverly doesn't look like an Englishman to me, but the things that he has been involved in the past week or so, he should change his name from Cleverly to Stupidly. And then we have this about that American ambassador. Bigery's actions thrilled some observers. His defenders include the top US senators, but multiple US officials told Politico that Brics' accusations were overstated and he may have damaged American interest in the long run. But why do they care? And then we have this. This is an ANC minister that committed suicide. Sorry to hear about that, but there was a heavy fraud investigation and it was very close to being finalized, and she decided to take the rope. And then we get to this one, and this is just for interest's sake. I did a Skidmark on a letter to Putin, and one of the popular channels on Telegram shared the thing, and these are some of the comments. Make a mandate, no ANC. The ANC is the death of South Africa, a bunch of money-hungry jackals. And this guy says, he is not lying. The ANC and the DA are both west-leaning. They are sly snakes always waiting for the next handout to enrich themselves. He is asking for something that is extreme, but his anger is shared among many South Africans. The guy is referring to me in that Skidmark. I, for one, will never vote ANC, EFF or DA. I think the ANC and EFF are full of criminals and the DA is full of groomers. Some will argue me, but that red pill is ready for anyone who needs to ask. There is no political party that does drive the right message. Let's see what happens next year. And then we get to that final point, and this is for the guys. And this one I picked specifically just to show you how advanced artificial intelligence is. This was drawn by artificial intelligence. Look at that. That is amazing. Really amazing. It's a great shot. It's a pity it's not a real girl. And on that note, please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. And in the description below the video is a link if you would like to support the channel financially, where you can sign up for a debit order, a once-off or a recurring monthly thing. Thank you for your support. Have a great evening.